Hello and a very warm welcome to France 24's Euro 2020 show. Italy have made it to the final of the tournament after beating Spain on penalties 4-2 after a 1-1 draw. Who to face the Azzurri in the final? England or Denmark? James Vecina joins me. Hi there, James.
Hi, Simon.
To try and answer that question, and we'll also be looking back at this enthralling match between Spain and Italy in the semi-final. Well, the Azzurri have qualified for the final of Euro 2020 after beating Spain in an explosive encounter. Considered as the best team in the tournament until the semi-final, the Azzurri were dominated by a sensational Spanish team that lacked that cutting edge to finish off the game. Federico Chiesa opened the score with a sensational curled effort in the 60th minute, only for Alvaro Morata to level with 10 minutes remaining. Extra time was uneventful, and in the penalty shootout, Gianluigi Donnarumma saved Morata's penalty, and Jorginho scored the winner. James, until now, we saw a free-flowing Italian football side. This was a much more classic performance from them.
It was, and not because they chose to. They were forced into it this time. We were used to in this tournament so far seeing Italy go very much forward, attacking, very much in control of the game. That was not the case, and we kind of have had a feeling that this could come, obviously knowing with Spain's strategy, its possession-based game, but to see it actually applied to Italy, this force that we'd seen come in, this rising force, it was a bit surprising, to be honest. That first half, watching the team who we saw dominate so much sit back really far in its, deep down in its side of the pitch, was a side that we hadn't seen until now. And in a way, they didn't look as though they were really in the game at that point, because it wasn't what we were used to be seeing. And there were many balls given away, Donnarumma giving away as well. It just didn't seem to be the first half. It just seemed to everything goes Spain's way, who in a way were not taking advantage of the chances that they had, given the possession that they had. But that all turned around afterwards, clearly in the second half, because something must have gone on for Italy to come back and manage to really revive themselves, even though things obviously did go into extra time. But it wasn't, as you say, it wasn't the game that we saw up until now. Very different, especially from a side who've changed things around a lot.
Considering this, does this make Italy stronger going into this final, that they were tested this way, that they had to adapt, or does it show weaknesses and frailties in this team's system?
I think it's, in a way, giving them this extra... I mean, it's a team that needs this experience, and they've had this different experience this time, which they hadn't had so far. So that's always a plus. When you look on the counter, they were great. They were, again, there on the attack. The first goal, brilliant. I mean, great play from the team there. The tackle from Laporte, I thought, was brilliant as well. But it was an excellent... You could see that is where Italy is, and just was not used to being in that. But Spain's level, managing to get through to their defence as well, does bring in questions again about their defence, about how they should be in those kind of cases. But it was a definite test, and I'm sure that it's prepared them. And whoever they're going to be facing in the next round, they will not be taking this lightly. You could see at the end of the game how happy they were. You know, it was pretty much, you could look at those last images and thought that they'd won the tournament already. It has not yet, or we'll see. It happens, but clearly a very, very happy side and very relieved side, because to go into finals on penalties must be very stressful as an Italian or Spanish fan.
Always a very nerve-wracking experience, isn't it? We've spoken about Spain. I think we need to praise them. They did dominate possession. They had plenty of opportunities, as you mentioned, James. But perhaps when you look at the team, and especially the three players up front, Dani Olmo, very good in the game, but poor finishing. Oyarzabal, also guilty of a glaring miss. And the lack of a striker. Is that what penalised them?
Well, I mean, that is when you look at it, it clearly is what's missing. I mean, they have so much possession, and to come up with so much little threats out front is, I think I've got 16 shots in the game, 5 on targets. It's not, they're not creating the threats that they should be. I mean, if you're in control of the game that much, you should push that to your advantage. They were very much, when we were talking about it earlier, going through Italy's right side, which was, I thought, kind of surprising, quite adventurous. I thought they were going to go testing Emerson first, because obviously with Spinazzola out, maybe that was going to be something that was going to be a bit difficult for Italy, not having things flowing quite so well. They changed things around afterwards, but When it comes to, I mean, the midfield, it was very much a game, a lot happening there between the two sides. But those finishes, I mean, it must be very, very stressful at times being a fan, because you have so much, you have these golden opportunities. I mean, the goal wide open, and Donnarumma sometimes not even there, and they're not taking advantage of it, and they need to be, because otherwise they end up having these situations going to extra time so often, as they have done, and missing out on their leads, which just happens so often as well.
Yeah, Spain played in 3 extra times, 90 minutes. That's almost the equivalent of an entire match altogether. But this is a very young Spanish team. We mustn't forget that. James, looking ahead at this Spanish team, how do you assess their campaign? Will they be happy? And what's in store for the future? It must be quite bright, no?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you can't say it hasn't been a good campaign. I mean, you've got a new head coach that's come in, a completely fresh team. They've got further than they did in the last Euros. So they're going to go back wherever, where they are now, and be happy with that result, because it's something to work from. And I mean, Luis Enrique, of course, took, you could say, a gamble. I mean, clearly he's a gamble in the eyes of the public for many in Spain, that's for sure. But it's worked out, because he's managed to get so far, and I'm sure that's going to be something for them to work on. There's plenty, as we've said, but it's a good result for them coming in as they are at this stage of their lifetime, if you like, as a team. Great result for them.
That's the first semi-final, James. Yeah. Let's turn our attention now to who Italy is going to play in the final, and it is either England or Denmark. The Three Lions have the opportunity to reach the final of a major tournament for the first time since 1966, the year they won the World Cup, their only major tournament win. They play a Denmark team that seems inhabited by a higher power since the tragedy that almost hit the football community with Christian Eriksen. James, England favourites on paper, but is it going to be an easy game for them?
I don't think we can say anything's going to be an easy game. With the way we've seen things go in the tournament, we've had so many ups and downs. Denmark, we would have never thought, when you see how they started everything with their first 2 games, that they would have got this far. And yet, here they are, facing England, one of the favourites from the start, who've picked things up and are doing really, really well. I mean, if we take a look at their results throughout the tournament, they've yet to concede a single goal. And they're the only team so far to have reached this far doing so. And I think Southgate has really...
These are the results just that we're seeing here of England, wins all around except that very disappointing draw against Scotland. And perhaps similar to Spain, an England team that's been growing into the tournament.
Growing in, but I think they've taken off more than Spain. I mean, you just look at the results, and that's obviously that the round of 16 against Germany, that was a massive play for them. And I'm sure that's given them lots of confidence, to get further in this. But yeah, I think Gareth Southgate has really he's found in these last games we've seen, going from this 2-0, going to the 4-0 against Ukraine, what looks right now to any fans anyway as like this lethal kind of combination. Let's see how things go. That back four that we had seems extremely solid. And yeah, from the clean sheets to everything, it's England's clearly knows what they're doing now compared to when we were obviously having doubts at the beginning in the group stage of the tournament. So it's going to be, obviously Denmark bring up a very spirited fight, as we said, but it's a very things are looking well for England as we go in so far.
England, who also have the support of Wembley, playing the semi-finals and the final if they get there, or on home turf. That's the only way to say it. 60,000 fans. Denmark manager Kasper Hjulmand said that the Three Lions could crack under that pressure. Gareth Southgate responded in a rather cheeky way.
We've never been to a final, so the pressure is what you choose it to be, really. I think it's a motivating thing. It's a challenge for us. If we were a country that had won 5 titles and we had to match what had gone before, it might feel differently, but we're not. Denmark have won it, so maybe there's more pressure on Denmark to replicate that.
And Gareth Southgate perhaps playing a little bit of mind games. This Danish team nonetheless has surpassed every expectation. First team to qualify for the knockout rounds after losing their opening 2 games. How good have they been, James, considering the context in this very particular tournament for them?
It's been terrific. I mean, they, I'm sure, have had a very difficult time as a team, but that spirit has come together and we've put on, it keeps coming back, this spirited fight within them. And really, when you look at their games, they managed to hold things together. Their leads, apart from obviously in the first 2 losing in from the start of the tournament, they managed to hold things together when they're in control, which will be a threat for England because clearly they're showing this strength. Obviously, a stellar goalkeeper there. But in every way, this has been the shock so far of the tournaments. Who knows how long it will continue for, but I'm sure they're going to fight for a lot because when you look at the 4 remaining, well, until now, but in the semi-finals, Denmark, obviously you could call them as one of the slightly smaller or less favourites teams at the start. They've got this far. I mean, they could surprise anyone.
If there's one thing we've seen during these Euros is that nothing is for certain. Well, that brings our show to the end. James and I will return on Wednesday for the England against Denmark match. James, thank you very much. For now, do stay tuned to France 24. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
Worldviews. France 24 brings you all the news from hotspots around the world. In Asia, the Middle East, the Americas, Africa, and France. From Europe to Oceania, take a daily trip across borders to keep abreast of all the latest international news. Get exclusive updates from our correspondents around the globe. Our daily reports will take you to all 4 corners of the world. Every day, watch Worldviews on France 24 and France24.com.